part of the country?
Sorry, I promise.
Oh. Well, now I have to change what I'm going to say.
Okay. We can edit later. Do post-production.
But when it came time to go to seminary, I felt called to go to seminary. I wanted to see another part of the country. For me, that was Philadelphia, the Lutheran Theological Seminary of Philadelphia. When it came time for internship, I again wanted to go to another part of the country I'd never been before. So I went into the Director of Contextual Education, Dr. Charles Leonard, and I said, Dr. Leonard, I've never been to Arizona. I'd like to go to the Southwest. He said, we don't have any connections with congregations in Arizona. Have you ever been to Massachusetts? I said, no. He gets up, he looks in his files, gets a telephone number, starts dialing a pastor in Massachusetts, and says, reaches the pastor who answers the phone. Who knows how things would have been different if he hadn't answered the phone. And Dr. Leonard says to him, I have an intern I have a student here who would like to do internship with you. And I'm thinking, wait, what happened here? I thought I was going to Arizona, and now you're saying I want to go to Massachusetts. Well, it turned out to be a great fit. I worked with Pastor Ted Asta, who some of you may know, who was a pastor in Nashua, New Hampshire, once upon his ministry. So that got me connected to the New England Synod, and really loved the Synod, had a great internship. That got me connected here from my first call, which was in North Quincy, Massachusetts. I was there for 13 years. And at the start of my 13th year, I had been there 12 years, I started to realize it was probably time to look for my second call. When I was in seminary in Philadelphia, I thought it would be really nice I bet it would be nice to go back to seminary between my first and second calls. I was sitting in worship, fed by worship. We had good preaching at the seminary. Worship was rich, and I thought, wow, wouldn't it be nice for a year to be back in community? 12 years later, when it came time for me to think about actually doing that, I thought, I bet my ministry and the church would be better served if I didn't get another theology degree. If I got a degree outside of theology and not from a school of religion or a seminary. And so that ended up for me being a Master of Public Administration from the Harvard Kennedy School in Cambridge. And that was a one-year program, a mid-career program. And but I wasn't there long when I realized, yeah, my heart's in parish ministry. My heart's in professional ministry. I was having a lot of conversations with my classmates at the Kennedy School about their faith and how they were living out their faith. But I realized, yeah, the church is my call, but was glad for that year. The course that I took in that year that I referenced the most is the course on negotiation. Before I took that course, I thought negotiation was just the way you kind of beat down or outmaneuver your opponent to get what you want. And I realized the strategy I learned was you learn about the other part. What are their interests? What are your interests? Is there a way you can get to win-win, right? And I thought, wow, that's very compatible with my Christian understanding of loving one's neighbor, right? You understand who they are, what they need, and how we can, figure out how to coexist and win-win. So at the end of that one-year program, this call opportunity at Trinity in Worcester came up, and so I went through the call process there and was called as pastor at Trinity Worcester. Was there 7 years. I was in my 8th year when the bishop election process happened, and I thought to myself, if I was approached to be considered as a nominee or a pre-identified person for the PIP, right? Bishop election, that I would be open to that. If someone nominated me, I would say yes. And I told my congregation at Trinity the number of times that I was on a nominating committee. We were looking for nominees for church council. And we could see gifts in people, and we would think, boy, they would make a great council member. they would say no. Sometimes for the right reasons, right? Like just wasn't the right time in life. They had other things going on, other commitments that would have worked against them to serve on the council. But others, they could have said yes and would have helped the whole body, right? By having a council of people that had been identified having gifts and served those, used those gifts on the council. So I felt like I was kind of modeling what I hope my congregation would also do, be open to using gifts for ministry when called upon. And since there were 11 of us pre-identified, I had no idea going into the election how the Spirit would work. We met together, the candidates met together, one of the pre-identified persons set up weekly Zoom meetings for us, and I think I made about half of those meetings, and everyone who was a candidate or a PIP, a pre-identified person, was together, and we were in prayer. We prayed for all the congregations in the synod, the rostered ministers, and that helped frame the whole election process, not as an election, but as a call process.
Was that Sue Gaeta who did that?
Yeah, Susan Gaeta,
Who
Pastor
is
Susan
now going to
Gaeta.
be our Stephen Wolka.
That's right. You're
Yep.
a new associate. Yeah, Pastor
Yep.
Susan Gaeta. Yep, called us, convened us together. And so that when through the election process, and your pastor was the hardest working person at that assembly, trying to get all those email ballots out to 400 people, and making sure that every last email got delivered, and that Carl worked really hard at making sure we got the ballots out. And it was a beautiful thing that the assembly waited for every last person to get their ballot before we voted, right? Every person mattered, and we took time, as kind of painstaking as it was, and I'm sure as frustrating as it was for the technology crew. But we trusted, and I was in a place of trust. We'll see where the Spirit leads, and the Spirit led in the way that it did, and so now here I am in my third month as Bishop of the New England Synod. This cross that I wear is the pectoral cross, handed down from bishop to bishop, starting in 1962, the New England Synod of the Lutheran Church in America, the LCA. And so on the back is inscribed the New England Synod, Lutheran Church in America. And then in 1987, New England Synod, ELCA. We don't have the names of the bishops on here. Too small a cross for that. But anyway, so I'm honored to wear this. It's your cross, really, the pectoral cross. And so I was elected to a 6-year term. And 5 years from now, I'll make a decision whether there will be a second term. But right now, there's a first term. And so my goal in this first year before the Synod Assembly is to get to a meeting of all of the conferences, all of the conference clergy. And New Hampshire was the first conference I visited. And so went up to Concord Lutheran Church in, Concordia.
Yes.
Concordia Lutheran Church in Concord, and met with the New Hampshire conference. And I plan to meet with all of the conferences. My predecessor had a goal of getting to all 183 congregations of the Synod. At that time, there were 183. Right now, we're at 157, 12 years later at the start of my ministry. I don't have that same goal, but I do have the same availability that I will be getting out and about to visit all the congregations. And it's a joy to see congregations that I've heard about and actually be here. I've heard about your congregation and others, and it's good to be here.
I forgot one thing.
Yeah.
Kim Kasmar has joined us online. I don't know. Kim, are you still there? That's her picture. She has her camera turned off. She may have stepped away. But anyway.
I am here, yes. Thanks, Pastor.
Meet Bishop Nathan Pipho. This is Kim Kasmar, one of our faithful members.
Hi, Kim.
Yeah.
Good morning, Bishop.
You can turn your camera on if you want us to see you moving, but you do it now. You be you.
I think I'll spare you.
All right.
Are you still in your PJs?
Yeah, no kidding.
No, I honestly, I'm not.
I have a question.
Yes, Dave.
I know that one of your priorities is anti-racism.
Yeah.
And there are a number of very interesting initiatives already in the New England Synod. I'm wondering if you could share what you hope for from congregations in that effort.
For congregations, I hope that congregations would be studying, reflecting, thinking together about how they can be anti-racist communities. I think that's a necessary first step, kind of before mission in a congregation, in a community, is to recognize, wait, how does race affect this community? What do we have to understand about race and white privilege before we are welcoming others into this community? And so that when we welcome others, it can be a community truly of welcome. And we're not welcoming people into systems that maybe aren't as welcoming as we might think. So I would hope that congregations are doing their own work, just to be aware of the way that we're created by race, right? Really the system of society that we have is so heavily impacted by race, and that we can be honest about that and confess it, name it, confess it, and resist it. No congregation will do the work perfectly, and no one's called to do it perfectly, but I think every congregation is called to be aware of the issues of race. And if we say, and for me, race is personal in that I was asked one time at an anti-racism conference, what has racism cost me as a white person? And I was asked that question by a black person who stood right in front of me, and he asked me, what has racism cost you? And I stumbled and bumbled for an answer because I thought, weren't we here because of what racism has cost you as the black person who's asking me that question? But he kept right at me. He was really kept kind of probing me for an answer that I wasn't really ready to give. I hadn't thought about it. But as I've continued to think about it, what I think race has cost us is the identity we claim to have. As a people of love and welcome inclusion, we say that. And I believe we want to be that. But I think we don't always know how, because we're steeped in race, white supremacy culture, we don't even know that we're not as welcoming as we think we are. We're not as welcoming in God's love as we would hope. And so for me, anti-racism work is about identity work, who we are as Christians, so we can truly be who we say we are as people of love and grace and welcome. And so congregations, I think, have to do their own work, and every congregation is at a different place and different reality, but I think we're all called to do that work. Yeah. Yes, please.
Go ahead, John.
That was a comment. Why do you think there's been an impact of fewer churches in the New England area? Is there something in particular that we need to think about, or
When
the Synod is helping to do to support those
I
that
think
are?
the first thing to recognize is that this is something that all synods across the ELCA are facing. We may be unique in some ways in New England. You know, if you read the demographics, New England may be the least churched part of the country.
Pacific Northwest fights for that claim too. David Brower used to claim that as well.
Yeah, Northeast and Northwest claim. So the number one thing to know is we're not alone, right? I think it's societal changes. It just costs more money, you know, to run a church, to pay a pastor, and health insurance and medical for a pastor and family. That's a reality. Just the upkeep of buildings is a reality. It just costs more. The expenses for a traditional one pastor or one congregation, one full-time pastor ministry, you know, it's difficult. At the Conference of Bishops meeting in September, one of the teams, I forget, they're the innovation team, showed us this graph of the downward trend of number of congregations and number of people in congregations. And they said that they were tasked with reversing the trend. That was their task, coming up with reversing the trend. And some of the bishops asked, is that the right question? Are we called to reverse the trend? Or are we called to be faithful as disciples? Faithful as disciples of Jesus. And if we start there, maybe the trend reverses for the right reasons, because people are growing in faith. Communities are growing in Christ. We're talking about what it means to be people of faith. We're inviting others to experience Christ for themselves and to experience the grace that we celebrate today as Lutherans, right? God's grace. How are we telling them? So when I say that, I share that graph because it's a graph across the church. We're all facing it. No one has the answer. Well, the one who has the answer is Christ. There is our answer, right? There's Christ. How we live that out? No one has the answer. I certainly don't claim to as bishop. But what I would point to is that I think the answer is found in all of us. It's found in us together. It's found in the bishops in conversation together. And I was really struck by the conference of bishops that we have right now. When I was there, one bishop has resigned, so this changes the numbers. When I was there in September at the conference of bishops, we have 65 synods and one presiding bishop. So that's a total of 66 bishops. How many men and how many women would you guess?
33 of each.
Yeah. Pastor Carl's right. 33 of each. 33 women, 33 men, exactly 50-50. And I was struck by a lot of these bishops were parish pastors. A lot of them know firsthand the reality of parish life. And I think there's a real honest, like, hey, who are we as church? And one of the bishops pointed out, one of the quote unquote innovations that this team was recommending was prayer partners. And the bishop pointed out, wait, prayers and innovation? Isn't that something about like identity, who we are? That we should be praying in all times and in all seasons, right? I think the bishops are aware. I think pastors in the synod are aware and across the ELC. I think you all, congregations, are aware. And I think if we trust and are open to the Spirit leading in us as community, that's where we'll discern answers. I would caution against anyone who says, oh, here's the answer. We need to do this. Okay, let's listen to that. Let's talk about it. Let's reflect on it. Let's be in community together about that. Maybe it's worth a try, or maybe that has more to say about one's fears or anxieties. Last thing I'll say to this answer is, to this question. There was an article by The Atlantic, I think, and it was behind a paywall, so I couldn't read the whole, it's too cheap to read the whole article. But the main premise was that society itself right now doesn't lend itself to joining organizations, especially organizations that include differences of opinion, people of differences of opinions. All of society right now is organized so that you don't ever have to, if you don't want to, you never have to encounter someone with a different opinion. You can go online and get the information. You can choose your news organization, which gives you the news the way you want to hear it. Social media, you can just watch the entertainment you want to watch. It really, every society itself is reinforcing ways one can live a very individualistic life. How do we as church? And I think this is why one of my priorities was nurturing relationships. How does the church at this day and age be a place of connections across generations, across political affiliations, outlooks, across races, across how are we a place of welcome? And this is again back to the question about anti-racism. To be a community of welcome, one really must understand how to be a place of welcome and not just say, oh, everyone's welcome here, and then not actually provide welcome. Or to say, yeah, we believe all political opinions, people of all political opinions are welcome here. But boy, have you heard that guy? Or have you seen that person and what they're saying? So, I think then, yeah,
On our Thursday night Zoom Bible study, Carl usually has us start off with bumps and blessings. And sort of keeping with that, I'm curious what you found most challenging so far as a new bishop, but also what's your best surprise?
the biggest thing I noticed right away was, and I shared this with some already this morning, my biggest surprise after 22 years in the parish, where Sunday morning was the center of the week. And it was a grounding center. It was the same people. Now, my great-great-grandfather came from Germany, and I have a little German heritage in me. And so I had my schedule on Sunday mornings, like down to the minute. Even Saturday night, my schedule winding down, going to bed at the same time, wake up on Sunday morning, same time, hit all the markers, 6:45, 7:15, 8, like I knew what I was doing. This morning, last night when I went to bed, I thought, no, wait a second, I'm in Manchester, New Hampshire. I need to get breakfast in the hotel lobby, and I want to work a little bit on my sermon. How long is it going to take? What time should I get there? So that grounding center of Sunday morning is, I was in Maine, I'm in New Hampshire, I'll be in Connecticut. That was an adjustment. Like, what's the grounding center in this office? Who are the people that I will kind of see over and over again, knowing the people that I'm called to serve now are in all of the New England states. So one of the office staff at the Synod House said, well, we can be that for you, and I appreciate them there. So that was an adjustment to me, was, that grounding center is different now. At the Conference of Bishops, they said as parish pastors, that kind of the high holy days, of course, are Christmas and Easter. And they said as a bishop, the high holy days are convocation and synod assembly. Those are like your poles that you kind of orient yourself to. So that was like the biggest, I wouldn't call it a bummer, but just that kind of adjustment. The blessing is, I really feel that every place I go, every congregation that I am at, in the conference meetings, when I hear congregations, when I hear pastors talk about their congregations, there's a blessing. There's like faithfulness in every place in some way, right? Not every congregation is the same. Every congregation lives out faith differently, but I see faithfulness in their context, right? That, yeah, they're following Christ in a way that they're best able to do that in their place. Not that doesn't mean there aren't challenges, but seeing Christ's church at work is inspiring and has been a blessing. Yeah. Oh, and then I'll come to you, but even, for example, like, even just seeing, this is really cool, right? This 95 Reese's on the door. And just being in this space and seeing the font there, what a beautiful font, and just the worship here was just really beautiful and uplifting this morning. And so just there's faithfulness in every place. I see. Yes, please.
No. During the time of the Kennedy School, did you have any classes with Professor Putnam? And are you familiar with his book, Bowling Alone, followed by Better Together, Swirl Seminar, blah, 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 blah,
Yeah.
which talks right into your discussion here about getting different organizations and different relationships with wide variety. One of them is the Warner social capital, yes. Anyway, church-based one is the Rick Warner, why am I saying?
Saddleback?
Warren, in Southern California, and then there's one here, Home Crown in Portsmouth. Anyway, did you have any experience with his teachings?
Yeah, I don't know that he was teaching when I was there. I don't remember my classmates talking about him, but certainly that book is one that I'm aware of. I don't know that
I have it right here.
Oh, yeah.
Or somebody else.
Yeah, certainly that premise is very interesting. Yeah, you're bowling alone.
And Better Together is the one that's, I think, 13 case studies of different, from all across the nation, different groups coming together to build community,
Yeah.
to reach out.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
I just think it's so important, again, because of the ways in which so many stressors are pulling us apart. I was talking with a campus minister who said the war in Gaza has really even frayed interfaith relationships that were pretty strong. And it just put them on edge. People who could talk to each other in the past, now suspicious of each other here in this country, right? That's just one example of just other ways people are just suspicious of each other in some ways. Yeah.
Do you know about how many churches in New England are looking for pastors?
I think right now we have about 12 congregations that are ready to receive a pastor. We have several more that are on a various path of self-study, putting a call committee together and so on. So I think we probably have like 12 that are ready right now. And then another group of maybe another 10 or 12 that will be there at some point.
And I would point out the Synod website's been redone, and if you look at now on the splash page, there's some links towards ones that are looking to, it's worth spending some time on the Synod website and seeing what's different and what's still the same.
Yeah, we do have a refreshed Synod website. It's still a work in progress, so if you are used to the old site and looking for something, just let us know. We're still trying to tinker with it. Other synods, I know one bishop in his synod, they had 70 openings at the church, at the ELCA youth gathering. This big youth group walks in, and I start talking with I think she was the lay minister, or I think she was the lay youth minister. And she said that their congregation worships about 200 on a Sunday. And it's been 2 years since they've had a pastor.
So is that because there's not enough candidates? And is that across the country?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, the number of candidates going into seminary, number of seminary students is decreasing. Yeah.
I was curious, kind of to David's questions, to broaden it out. When I got here, I was asked to try and strengthen connections with the Synod. What would you like the lay folks to know about how they can be supportive, or what they can do, or and obviously this pray offering, that kind of obvious stuff, but if you could make your ask for your pitch to these folks here, what would you want to do or no?
Yeah. First, it starts with the conference, starts with your connections with your neighboring parishes. What are the ways that you pray for neighboring parishes, right? That's a beautiful thing. What are other ways that you can be in partnership, in relationship, in ministry with your neighbor, your closest Lutheran congregations, right? I think that's the first thing. And your conference. How are you Lutherans in New Hampshire together? How are you strengthening the conference? How are you? I think Carl knows the dean of the conference.
Yeah, we have a name with her.
But that's, I think, the place to start. Yeah. Kim is the dean of the New Hampshire conference. So what are the ways you're living together as Lutherans in New Hampshire? What are the ways you're strengthening each other's ministries, finding ways to collaborate, partnership, work together? That's one. Second is Synod Assembly. That's important. The third is we have a communications director, Martha White, who puts out a Monday medley every Monday, and every Wednesday there's a feature story in the FYI New England. I was struck. I told Martha, wow, there's a lot going on. There really is a lot going on. Check out that Monday medley. If you're not on the email list, you can get on the email list. A continuous, every week, there's programs coming up. A lot of these now are offered on Zoom. You can take part in some of these programs, book studies, courses, offerings from United Lutheran Seminary that are online. You can grow in faith and be connected from the comfort of your own homes through Zoom and other in-person activities that are scheduled. So, number one, connect with your local congregations, the New Hampshire Conference. Number two, be aware and participate in what's offered. Or actually, number two was Synod Assembly. Synod Assembly and convocation. You're going to convocation, right? So the support,
David is
support,
too.
support your pastor, going to the convocation. Check out the website, the FYI New England, and be involved. I thank you for your mission support. Continue supporting the Synod with your mission support dollars, which we share with the ELCA. That's a way to be part of church too and support the church. ELCA World Hunger and other organizations that are Lutheran organizations Lutheran ministries seeking to respond to the world's need. These are all ways that you can be part of the work of the larger church.
And some of those dollars came back our way with the asylum project too, right? Did we get $5,000 grant for that?
2,000.
Twice, a $10,000 grant.
And I think it all starts with the understanding that, and you'll see this on the Synod website, we are church together, right? It just starts with that understanding that this congregation is one of 157 congregations in New England, one of 8,500 throughout the country and the Caribbean, Alaska, and Hawaii, that we are in full communion agreement with the Episcopal Church, the United Church of Christ, the Methodist Church, Presbyterian Church, and on, right? That you're not in this alone. That we are in this together.
Thank you.
And pray. Yes, you said that right away. Pray for our life together. Yes.
Did you ever get to go to Arizona?
Did I ever get to go to Arizona? Yes. Arizona turned out to be one of my more painful moments because I play in a softball league, and my team went to play in a national tournament in Phoenix, and we were in double elimination tournament on the Friday. We were up by 8 runs going into the last inning of what turned out to be our last game. So you can about know what happened. And I remember I was playing left center field. My right center fielder and we had a saying: water covers 75% of the Earth's surface. We cover the rest. That was our saying. And we were really good, but we just fell apart in that game. And we were hugging each other and we were bawling our heads on each other's shoulders after that game. And so, but anyway, yes, I did make it to Arizona.
Thanks for bringing it up. Thanks for bringing that up. Yes.
Sad memories.
No, but it was fun to be there. Glad to be there. And one other memory on the other end of things was I went there on a mission trip to the Navajo Nation in Arizona. And we misjudged the time it was going to take us to get back to the airport to fly out. And I was flying home to Iowa from Arizona. And running through the airport to get to the gate. I'm the last person. And I think the gate agents, they said, oh, you're here. I said, yeah. And they said, well, just sit anywhere. When you get down there, just sit wherever there's an empty seat. I mean, they took my ticket. They just sit. I don't know if they had rearranged seats. So I said, even first class? And they said, yes, go. So there was one open seat in first class. And I thought maybe it's the last seat on the plane. So I sit there and the flight attendant says, sir, are you supposed to be sitting there? I said, the gate agent told me to sit wherever there was. Okay. So, I flew first class on Air West at that time.
Air West on the mission field.
Yeah, right. Air West was bought by US Air, which was bought by American. Anyway, so it wasn't all that fancy, but anyway, first class. So it's not all bad in Arizona.
Do you have a favorite church joke?
I like dad jokes. I do like dad jokes, but church jokes specifically. For example, on the way here this morning, I had lost my phone, and so I had to stop and ask at the gas station what time it was. So I go to the clerk and said, "What time is it?" The clerk said, "I don't know. It keeps changing." Oh, here's a church joke. Actually, when I got here this morning, the first thing I did was I hid. I hid because a good bishop is hard to find. Okay, here's one more. My brother called me. My brother said, Nathan, I don't understand, but my wife keeps hugging me. She just keeps hugging me all the time. All of a sudden, she's hugging me. And I said, well, Matt, that's because I told her to embrace her mistakes.
That's a good one in many sentences.
Yeah, you like that one?
Yeah, that's ubiquitous.
Yeah.
And actually, in this new call now, I have this route to the Synod House, just 2.4 miles, my apartment to the Synod House in Worcester. Every time I go, I get hit by the same bicycle. I get hit by the same bicycle. It's a vicious cycle. You're going to be sorry you asked that.
I'm really not. Did you want to share your like first day in office, what you stepped into when you started your bishop with the other churches and the
With the,
you might not want to.
one of the first statements I had to make was Christ Lutheran Church in Natick. There were, I think, at least 2 Episcopal parishes and 2 UCC parishes all had their pride flags removed, and other flag, like this other flag or paraphernalia left, how marriages, in support of the idea that marriage is between a man and a woman. And so it was pretty painful for the congregations involved to have their flags removed and other materials put there. So we put out a statement with the Diocese of Massachusetts and the Southern New England Conference of the UCC churches, denouncing that kind of hate language, that kind of violence against the churches. Yeah, that was, I guess, my very first day.
Welcome to the new job.
Working on that statement. I mean, the fortunate thing there was flags. It wasn't humans, right, that were harmed. It was humans that had to suffer, right, that their church, their property was affected in that way. The other, I've told people that in this office I feel very blessed, and it's very real. The other very real thing happened was Pastor Paul Krampitz in Connecticut, who was in this synod 1 year longer than I have been, was killed on a motorcycle in a motorcycle accident. So I was with that congregation the first Sunday after that, and then was there to lead the funeral. So that was pretty painful. But it's been a joy to get to congregations and conferences, and I've had one-on-one meetings either in the office or on Zoom with pastors and deacons of the synod, other folks in the synod. We have a lot going on. It's a beautiful synod. It's it's a great place. I serve after 2 bishops who both served 2 terms. I think New England Synod is pretty solid, has been well run, well organized. I think the clergy in the New England Synod have been cooperative and supportive, and I think are gifted clergy as well. I think we have a little work to do perhaps to kind of bring clergy together again after the pandemic. I think there have been some changes among the clergy, but bring us back together. And I think at the convocation in November, the first night there's activities designed for the pastors to get to know each other, meet one another, and develop those relationships, which again, I think will be so important going forward as we kind of figure this out together, what it means to be Lutherans at this time in New England, what it means to be Christians, the role of local congregations. I mean, even as the church changes, the local congregation as a gathering place will continue to be central, I think, and very, very important. So, and going back to the question, how you can partner with the synod, you can just keep this congregation going in a healthy manner. Support the ministry here. Support this as a ministry of the New England Synod. treat your pastor well, treat your people well, treat each other well, love and support one another, seek to find ways to, continue to be and crop walk as well, and supporting world hunger as well, ELC World Hunger. Yeah, continue to live out your faith, grow in faith.
Oh, all right.
So, we are church together. And if there's anything you need specifically, resources or questions you have, reach out, because you're probably not the only congregation asking that question. And, what are the ways that sometimes we kind of limit ourselves. I even said, how are you connected with your other local Lutheran congregations, your conference? But with Zoom, there's ways that maybe you're connected with a congregation in Connecticut. Maybe the two of you, your congregations, want to focus on some aspect of faith and life, or Rhode Island or Massachusetts, right? We don't have to be limited by the ways we've done church. What are the new, or another congregation, another part of the country, or another synod, right? How are you growing in Christ together and helping one another out? And then sharing that with the rest of us. Yeah, here's what we're discovering. This is really working well. And you might do this, but don't do that. Don't do it that way, because we learned that's not going to go right.
Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Follow me on Facebook if you aren't already. I enjoyed posting pictures on Facebook of my travels. I've already posted pictures from here.
Get on Facebook.
And my strategy on Facebook is intentional. I'm not seeking to engage or put opinions on Facebook, but to showcase where I'm going, showcase people and places so that we can see. You scroll through what I posted on Facebook or Instagram. There you can see the New England Synod and who we are as Christ people in New England. And that's my point of being on Facebook. So you all can see, we all can see each other, who we are in the Synod. Go in peace, love and serve the Lord. Thank you for being here.
Amen.
Bye, Kim. I'm gonna turn you off now.
Bye, Pastor.
Have a good day.
You two take care. Thank you.